The medical bay was quiet at this hour. Dr. Yuna Han sat at her desk reviewing patient files on her datapad. The night shift was usually slow on Horizon's gate station. Most aliens preferred their own doctors, their own medicine. Yuna didn't mind. It gave her time to study the strange biology of the hundreds of species that lived on the station. She was reading about Thurian respiratory systems when the doors burst open. A small creature rushed inside, moving on 6 thin legs. Its body was covered in a translucent shell that shimmered under the medical bay lights. Yuna recognized it immediately. A Vectar child. She had only seen a few of them on the station. They usually kept to themselves in the lower residential sectors. The child was making high-pitched clicking sounds. Its whole body trembled. Yuna stood up quickly and activated her translation collar. The device hummed for a moment, then the child's clicks turned into words. Please. Please help. My mom won't stop shaking. She's turning gray. Please, you have to save her. Yuna grabbed her emergency medical kit from the wall. Show me where she is, quickly. The child turned and ran. Yuna followed, her heart pounding. She had never treated a Vectar before. She knew almost nothing about their biology, but she couldn't ignore a child's cry for help. That wasn't who she was. That wasn't what humanity stood for. They ran through the station corridors. The child was fast, but Yuna kept pace. They went down 2 levels into the older part of the station where the lights flickered and the walls needed repair. This was where the poorest residents lived, the ones who couldn't afford better quarters. The child stopped at a door marked with Vectar symbols. It opened automatically and Yuna stepped inside. The room was small and cramped. Simple furniture sat against the walls, and on the floor a larger Vectar lay on her side. Her body was shaking violently. Her shell, which should have been a bright amber color, had turned a sickly gray. White foam bubbled from her mouth parts. 3 other Vectars stood in the corner watching. They clicked softly to each other, their voices sad and resigned. Yuna knelt beside the trembling Vectar. She opened her medical kit and pulled out her scanner. How long has she been like this? 2 hours, the child said, its voice breaking. She was fine, and then she started shaking. She won't talk to me. She won't look at me. Please make her better. Please. Yuna ran the scanner over the Vectar's body. The readings appeared on her datapad, but they meant almost nothing to her. Vectar biology was so different from human biology. Where humans had one brain, Vectar had neural clusters spread throughout their body. Where humans had a heart, Vectar had 3 pumping organs. But Yuna could see the problem, even if she didn't understand it completely. The neural clusters were firing chaotically. It looked like a seizure. A bad one. What's your name? Yuna asked the child. Kree. And your mother? Sela. Yuna placed her hand gently on Sela's shell. It was hot. Too hot. Kree, has your mother been sick before? Has this happened to anyone in your family? Kree's legs trembled. My aunt died like this last year. The doctors said it was the shatter. They said there's no cure. The shatter. Yuna had heard whispers about it in the station's medical reports. A condition that affected Vectar neural systems, always fatal. Death usually came within 6 hours of the first symptoms. One of the adult Vectar in the corner stepped forward. He spoke in a deep, clicking voice. Human doctor, this is kind of you. But there is nothing to be done. The shatter takes everyone it touches. We will prepare for the morning ceremony. Yuna looked up at him, then back at Kree. The child had wrapped 2 of its small arms around one of Sela's larger limbs. Tears, or something like tears, dripped from Kree's compound eyes. Something twisted in Yuna's chest. She remembered being young, sitting in a hospital room, watching her own mother struggle to breathe. She remembered the fear, the helplessness, the desperate hope that someone, anyone, could make things better. Her mother had survived. Human doctors had found a treatment. They had refused to give up. Yuna wouldn't give up either. I need to take her to the medical bay, Yuna said firmly. I need better equipment, more data. I can't help her here. The adult Vectar shook his head. She cannot be moved. The shaking will kill her faster. Then I'll work here. Yuna pulled out more equipment from her kit. I need access to the station's xenobiology database. I need her medical history. Every scan, every test she's ever had. Can you get me that? Kree nodded frantically. Yes, I can. Our files are in the residential database. Get them. Now. Send them to my datapad. Yuna gave Kree her access code. Kree rushed to a small terminal on the wall and began typing with 4 of its arms. Yuna looked at the other Vectar. I need you to tell me everything you know about the Shatter. When it starts? What happens? Everything. The adult Vectar exchanged glances. Finally, one of them spoke. It begins with trembling. The shell loses color. The neural clusters fire without control. The body temperature rises. After 6 hours, the neural clusters burn out. Death comes quickly after that. Has anyone ever survived? No one, not in recorded history. Yuna's jaw tightened. Then we're going to make history tonight. She worked quickly, running scan after scan. Sella's condition was deteriorating. The trembling was getting worse. Her shell was now almost completely gray. But Yuna refused to stop. She cross-referenced the scans with basic neurological conditions in other species. Seizures, convulsions, neural storms. Humans had dealt with similar problems for thousands of years. There had to be something, some pattern, some clue. Kree returned to its mother's side. The child stroked Sella's shell gently, clicking soft words of comfort that the translation collar didn't pick up. Private words, family words. Yuna glanced at them and felt her determination harden into steel. This child would not lose their mother. Not tonight. Not if Yuna had anything to say about it. She opened a communication channel on her datapad. This is Dr. Han in the lower residential sector. I need emergency authorization to access the full xenobiology database. Medical priority override. There was a pause. Then a bureaucratic voice responded. Dr. Han, that level of access requires administrator approval. Submit a formal request and... There's a patient dying in front of me right now. Yuna interrupted, her voice sharp. I don't have time for paperwork. I need that access immediately. I'm sorry, but protocol. Yuna looked at Kree. The child was sobbing now, its whole small body shaking as hard as its mother's. Get me Director Cass, Yuna said coldly. Right now. Director Cass arrived 30 minutes later. He was a Thurian, tall and covered in dark green scales. His yellow eyes swept over the room, taking in the scene. The dying Vectar on the floor, the sobbing child, the determined human doctor surrounded by medical equipment. Dr. Han, he said slowly, explain why you are demanding emergency database access at this hour. Yuna didn't look up from her scanner. This patient has the Shatter. I believe it can be treated, but I need full access to Vectar biological data and comparative xenobiology files to find the treatment. Cass's scales shifted, a Thurian expression of doubt. The Shatter has no treatment. This is known. Why waste resources on an impossible task? Because that child asked me to try. Yuna finally looked up at him. Her eyes were hard. Are you going to tell Kree that their mother isn't worth the database access fee? Cass looked at Kree. The child stared back at him, tears still streaming down its face. Its small arms clutched its mother's trembling limb. The director was silent for a long moment. Then he pulled out his own datapad and entered a code. You have 12 hours of full access. After that, I must file a report with the medical consortium. They will not be pleased. I don't care if they're pleased, Yuna said. I care about saving her life. Cass left without another word. Yuna immediately dove into the database. She read everything she could find about Vectar neural biology, how their clusters communicated, what chemicals they used, what could go wrong. The Shatter was documented but barely understood. Most scientists believed it was a genetic condition, a flaw in the neural development that appeared randomly. Once it started, there was nothing to be done. The neural clusters would fire faster and faster until they burned themselves out. But as Yuna read deeper, something caught her attention. A single paper written 50 years ago by a Vectar researcher. The paper suggested that the Shatter might be related to environmental factors. Perhaps something in the diet. But the researcher had died before completing the study and no one had followed up on the theory. Diet. Environmental factors. Yuna pulled up Sella's medical history. She looked at blood work from routine checkups. She compared it to the baseline data for healthy Vectar, and there, buried in the numbers, she saw it. Sella's levels of a specific mineral were extremely low. The mineral had a long, complicated name that Yuna couldn't pronounce. But she recognized its chemical structure. It was similar to magnesium in humans. Yuna's heart raced. She thought about human medical history. Magnesium deficiency could cause seizures. Severe deficiency could cause uncontrollable muscle spasms, tremors, even death. and it was often overlooked because the symptoms seemed neurological rather than nutritional. Could it be that simple? She checked the other adult Vectar in the room. "Can I scan you? Just a quick health check?" They agreed, curious. Yuna scanned all three of them. Their mineral levels were normal, healthy. She pulled up the medical file of Kree's aunt, the one who had died from the shatter last year. The file was incomplete, but it had one blood test. Yuna checked the numbers. The same mineral was low. Very low. "It's not genetic," Yuna whispered. "It's nutritional." She ran new calculations on her data pad. If the shatter was caused by severe mineral deficiency, then the neural clusters were firing chaotically because they didn't have the resources to function properly. Like a human brain having a seizure from low blood sugar or electrolyte imbalance. The treatment would be simple. Replace the missing mineral, stabilize the neural chemistry. But there was a problem. Yuna didn't have the pure mineral in her medical kit. She would have to synthesize it from the supplies in the medical bay, and she would have to calculate the exact dose for Vectar biology. Too little and it wouldn't work. Too much, and it could poison Sela. Yuna looked at Kree. "I think I know what's wrong with your mother, but the treatment is dangerous. It might not work. It might make things worse. Do you understand?" Kree nodded, its voice small. "She's dying anyway. Please try. Please save her." Yuna squeezed one of Kree's small hands. "I'll do everything I can." She gathered her equipment and ran back to the medical bay. Her hands moved quickly, mixing compounds, checking formulas 3 times. She synthesized a clear liquid that contained the mineral in a form that Vectar bodies could absorb quickly. By the time she returned to Sela's quarters, 4 hours had passed since the symptoms began. Sela was worse. Her trembling had become violent spasms. Her shell was now a dark, ugly gray. Foam covered the floor around her mouthparts. Yuna knelt beside her and prepared the injection. Her hands were steady, but her heart hammered in her chest. This was experimental medicine, untested. If she was wrong, she would kill Sela faster than the shatter would. But if she did nothing, Sela would definitely die. Yuna found the injection port at the base of Sela's shell, where the main neural cluster connected to the body. She inserted the needle carefully and pushed the plunger. The clear liquid disappeared into Sela's body. Then Yuna sat back and waited. 1 minute passed. Nothing changed. 2 minutes. Still nothing. Sela's spasms continued. 3 minutes. Kree was crying again, clicking words that the translator couldn't understand. 4 minutes. Yuna checked her scanner. The neural activity was still chaotic. Had she been wrong? Had she just wasted the last hours of Sela's life? 5 minutes, and then slowly the trembling began to decrease. Sela's spasms became less violent. The foam stopped forming at her mouth. Her shell, so gray and lifeless, began to show hints of amber at the edges. Kree gasped. "Mom! Mom!" The neural clusters on Yuna's scanner were stabilizing. The chaotic firing was slowing down, organizing into normal patterns. Sela's body temperature started to drop. 6 minutes after the injection, Sela's eyes opened. They were cloudy at first, unfocused. But then they found Kree. Sela made a weak clicking sound. Kree threw all 6 arms around its mother, sobbing with joy instead of grief. The other Vectar in the room stood in shocked silence. One of them whispered something in their own language, too quiet for the translator to catch. Yuna leaned back against the wall. Her whole body was shaking now, adrenaline finally releasing its grip on her muscles. She had done it. She had actually done it. Sela was alive. A new voice spoke from the doorway. Yuna looked up and saw another alien standing there. He was Thurian like Director Cass, but older. He wore a white coat marked with medical symbols. "I am Dr. Vex," he said, his voice filled with disbelief. "I am the station's head physician. Director Cass informed me of your experiment." He stepped closer, pulling out his own scanner. He checked Sela's readings, then checked them again. "This is impossible," he said finally. "The shatter has no cure. We have known this for generations." Yuna stood up, her legs still unsteady. "You are looking at it wrong. It's not a genetic neurological condition. It's a severe nutritional deficiency. The neural clusters need specific minerals to function. Without them, they fire out of control." Vex stared at her. "A deficiency? Something so simple?" "Sometimes the simplest answer is the right one. Humans learned that a long time ago. We had diseases that killed thousands until we realized they were just caused by missing vitamins or minerals." Vex looked at Sela, who was now sitting up with Kree's help. She was still weak, but her color was returning. Her eyes were clear. "You have done something remarkable tonight, Dr. Han," Vex said quietly. "You have cured the incurable." Yuna shook her head. "I just refused to accept that nothing could be done. That's all." She packed up her equipment, exhaustion finally catching up to her. As she headed for the door, she felt a gentle touch on her arm. Kree stood there looking up at her with those large compound eyes. "Thank you," Kree said simply. "You saved my mom." Yuna knelt down and hugged the small alien. "You saved her, Kree. You didn't give up. You asked for help. That took real courage." As Yuna walked back to her quarters in the early morning light, she didn't know that this night would change everything. She didn't know that word of what she had done would spread across the station, across the sector, across the galaxy. She just knew that a child still had their mother, and that was enough. 2 weeks after saving Sela, Yuna's life had completely changed. She could barely walk through the station without being stopped. Aliens of all species wanted to thank her, to ask her questions, to simply see the human doctor who had done the impossible. The Vectar community had been the first to react. Within days of Sela's recovery, every Vectar on the station knew the story. The mother who had been dying from the shatter. The human doctor who refused to give up. The miracle cure. Yuna tried to explain that it wasn't a miracle. It was just medicine. Just science. But to the Vectar, who had watched their loved ones die from the shatter for generations, it felt like a miracle. Then the messages started coming from other stations. Other worlds. Desperate Vectar families who had members showing the first signs of the shatter. Could the human doctor help? Could she share her treatment? Could she save their families too? Yuna worked 18-hour days. She refined her treatment, making it more effective and easier to produce. She wrote detailed instructions so other doctors could replicate her work. She answered every message, every call for help. Director Cass had given her a larger medical bay and 2 assistants, but it still wasn't enough. On the 15th day after treating Sela, a transport ship arrived at Horizon's gate. It carried 7 Vectar, all showing symptoms of the shatter. Their families had spent all their savings to bring them to the human doctor. Yuna met them in the docking bay. She saw the fear in their eyes, the trembling in their limbs, the gray tint spreading across their shells. She saw the families clinging to them, hoping against hope. "Bring them to Medical Bay 3, Yuna said calmly. "We'll start treatment immediately." She worked through the night with her assistants, treating each patient carefully, checking doses, monitoring responses. By morning, all 7 were stable. Their trembling had stopped. Their color was returning. The families wept with joy. They tried to pay Yuna to give her gifts, but she refused. "Just go home," she said gently. "Be with your families. That's payment enough." But word spread even faster after that. More ships arrived. More patients. More desperate families. Yuna realized she needed help. Real help. She sent a message to Earth marked urgent. She requested medical personnel who specialized in neurology and biochemistry. She needed people who could help her understand why the deficiency occurred and how to prevent it in the first place. 3 weeks after her message, 2 humans arrived on a transport from Earth. Dr. Taemin Choi and Dr. Hana Park. Taemin was tall and thin, with kind eyes and quick hands. He was a neurologist who had specialized in seizure disorders. Hana was shorter, with sharp eyes and a sharper mind. She was a biochemist who had spent years studying nutritional deficiencies in extreme environments. They met Yuna in the medical bay, where she was treating her 32nd shatter patient. "Dr. Han," Taemin said, watching her work with clear admiration. "We came as fast as we could." Yuna looked up from her patient and felt relief wash over her. "Thank you. Thank you for coming. I need help. There are so many of them and I can't." "Show us what you've learned," Hana interrupted gently. "We'll take it from there. That's why we're here." For the next week, the 3 human doctors worked together. Yuna showed them her treatment protocol. Taemin helped refine the dosing for different stages of the shatter. Hana investigated the root cause of the deficiency. What Hana discovered changed everything. The mineral deficiency wasn't natural. It was caused by a change in the Vectar food supply. A century ago, Vectar had eaten a specific plant that grew on their homeworld. But as they spread across the galaxy, that plant became harder to find. They replaced it with similar plants from other worlds. Plants that looked the same, tasted the same, but lacked the crucial mineral. Over time, the deficiency built up in their systems. Most Vectar stayed healthy because they got enough of the mineral from other sources. But some, through bad luck or poor diet, developed severe deficiencies, and then the shatter appeared. It's like scurvy in humans, Hana explained to Yuna and Taemin. Sailors used to die from it on long voyages. They didn't know they needed vitamin C. Once we figured it out, the cure was simple. Eat citrus fruits. The Vectar situation is the same. They just need to add this mineral back into their diet. So we can prevent it, Yuna said, her eyes wide. Not just treat it, but stop it from happening at all. Exactly. The three of them worked on a prevention program. They identified which foods were rich in the needed mineral. They created simple dietary supplements that Vectar could take daily. They wrote guidelines for Vectar communities across the galaxy, but not everyone was happy with their work. 6 weeks after Yuna had saved Sela, a ship arrived at Horizon's gate. It carried representatives from the Galactic Medical Consortium, the organization that had governed medical practices across known space for 500 years. The lead representative was an Arvali named High Physician Quell. The Arvali were bird-like aliens, covered in sleek feathers and possessed of sharp, intelligent eyes. Quell's feathers were silver with age, and her gaze was cold as she entered Yuna's medical bay. "Dr. Han," Quell said, her voice sharp and precise, "I am here to investigate your treatment of the Vectar condition known as the shatter." Yuna stood up from her desk. Taemin and Hana moved to stand beside her. "Investigate? I've documented everything. My methods are sound. My success rate is 100%. That is precisely the problem," Quell said. She moved through the medical bay, examining the equipment with clear disapproval. "The shatter has been studied by the finest medical minds in the galaxy for generations. It has been deemed incurable, and yet you, a human from a species barely a century old in galactic society, claim to have found a cure in a matter of hours." "I didn't claim anything," Yuna said, keeping her voice level. "I just tried to help a dying patient. And it worked." Quell turned to face her. "You experimented on a living being without proper authorization. You used untested treatments. You violated a dozen medical protocols. And now you are spreading this treatment across multiple worlds without consortium approval." Taemin stepped forward. "Are you saying she should have let them die? That following your protocols is more important than saving lives?" "I am saying that medicine requires caution, oversight, proper testing. The consortium exists to protect patients from reckless experimentation." "Reckless?" Hana's voice was ice. "Dr. Han's treatment has saved 47 Vectar lives in the past 6 weeks. 0 complications. 0 deaths. What exactly is reckless about that?" Quell's feathers ruffled, a sign of agitation. "You do not understand the larger picture. The consortium maintains order. If every doctor simply did as they pleased, ignoring established procedures, chaos would result." "And how many Vectar died while your consortium maintained order?" Yuna asked quietly. "How many families lost mothers, fathers, children? Because your protocol said there was nothing to be done." Quell was silent for a moment. Then she straightened her posture. "The consortium will be conducting a full review of your methods, Dr. Han. Until that review is complete, you are ordered to cease all treatment of Vectar patients. You will provide all your research data to consortium investigators, and you will make no further claims about curing the shatter." "No," Yuna said simply. Quell's eyes widened. "Excuse me?" "I said no. There are patients who need help. I'm not going to stop treating them because your organization feels threatened." "Threatened? You think this is about—" "I think this is about control," Yuna interrupted. "I think the consortium doesn't like that a human found a solution to a problem you couldn't solve. And I think you care more about your reputation than about saving lives." Quell's feathers stood on end now, trembling with anger. "You will regret this defiance, Dr. Han. The consortium has the authority to revoke your license to practice medicine anywhere in galactic space. We can ensure you never treat another patient." "Then do it," Yuna said, meeting Quell's gaze without flinching. "But you can't undo the fact that 47 Vectar are alive because I refuse to give up. You can't undo the fact that we now know how to prevent the shatter. The knowledge is out there. Other doctors are already using it. You can punish me, but you can't stop what we've started." Quell stared at her for a long moment. Then she turned sharply and walked toward the door. "A formal hearing will be convened within 2 weeks. You will be summoned to answer for your actions. I suggest you prepare a defense. After she left, Taman let out a long breath. That went well. Hana shook her head. She's going to come after us with everything she has. Yuna sat down at her desk, suddenly feeling very tired. Let her. We saved those people. That's what matters. Is it, though? Taman asked gently. If they take away your license, you can't help anyone else. Yuna looked at him, then at Hana. Then she pulled up a message on her datapad. It was from Kree. The message was simple. A picture of Kree and Sella together, both healthy, both happy. The text below read, "Thank you for giving me my mom back." Yuna showed the message to the others. This is why we became doctors. This is why we studied and trained and gave up years of our lives. Not to follow protocols or maintain order, to save people, to give children their parents back. If the consortium can't see that, then maybe it's time someone stood up to them. Taman smiled slowly. You know they're going to destroy you for this. Probably, Yuna agreed. But they're going to have to. The hearing room was designed to intimidate. It was a massive circular chamber with seats rising in tiers all around a central platform. Representatives from the Galactic Medical Consortium filled most of the seats. Dozens of species, hundreds of doctors, all watching as Yuna walked to the center. She was alone on the platform. Taman and Hana sat in the observation section, along with Director Kass and Dr. Vex. A few Vectar had also come, but they were not allowed to speak. This was a medical tribunal, and only licensed physicians had a voice. High Physician Quell sat at the highest tier, looking down at Yuna with cold satisfaction. She began speaking, her voice amplified to fill the chamber. We gather today to address serious violations of medical protocol by Dr. Yuna Han of Earth. The charges are as follows. Unauthorized experimentation on a living patient, use of untested treatments without consortium approval, distribution of medical procedures without proper oversight, and making false claims about curing an incurable condition. Murmurs ran through the assembly. Many of the alien doctors looked at Yuna with suspicion, some with outright hostility. Quell continued, Dr. Han, you stand accused of dangerous and reckless behavior that undermines the very foundation of safe medical practice.
How do you plead?
Yuna took a deep breath. I plead not guilty. Everything I did was to save lives. I followed the most important protocol of all. Do no harm. Do no harm? Quell's voice dripped with scorn. You injected an untested compound into a dying patient. You had no way of knowing if it would work. You could have killed her. She was already dying, Yuna said firmly. The Shatter has a 100% fatality rate under consortium treatment protocols, which is to say, no treatment at all. I gave her a chance. That's more than your protocols offered. A Thurian doctor in the third tier stood up and, the Shatter is incurable. This has been established medical fact for generations. Are you claiming that generations of doctors were simply wrong? I'm claiming they were looking at it the wrong way, Yuna replied. They assumed it was a genetic neurological condition. They never considered that it might be nutritional. It's an easy mistake to make when you're not familiar with deficiency diseases. And you are familiar with them? Quell asked. You, a doctor from a species that has been in space for less than 200 years? Yes, Yuna said simply. Because humans dealt with deficiency diseases for thousands of years. Scurvy killed sailors. Pellagra killed farmers. Rickets crippled children. We know what it looks like when a body doesn't get what it needs. We know the symptoms. The Shatter fit the pattern. An Arvali doctor spoke up from the second tier. Even if we accept your theory, you had no right to experiment on a patient without proper approval. The consortium has strict guidelines for testing new treatments. Animal trials, controlled studies, peer review. You skipped all of that. Because there wasn't time, Yuna said, her voice rising. Sella had maybe 4 hours left to live. Should I have let her die while I filed paperwork? Should I have told her child that I was sorry, but I needed consortium approval first? Yes, Quell said flatly. That is exactly what you should have done. One patient is not worth compromising the integrity of the entire medical system. The chamber erupted in murmurs. Some doctors nodded in agreement. Others looked uncomfortable. Yuna stared at Quell in disbelief. You actually believe that? You actually think following rules is more important than saving a life? I believe that rules exist for a reason. They protect patients from doctors who think they know better than established science. I didn't think I knew better, Yuna said, her hands clenched at her sides. I just refused to accept that there was nothing I could do. I looked at the problem with fresh eyes. I asked questions that apparently no one else bothered to ask. A new voice spoke up. Dr. Vex stood in the observation section. May I speak? Quell looked annoyed but nodded. The tribunal recognizes Dr. Vex. Vex moved to stand near the platform, though not on it. I was present when Dr. Han treated the first patient. I watched her work. I saw her reasoning. As the station's head physician, I can testify that her methods were sound. She was thorough, careful, and documented everything. You were present and did nothing to stop her? Quell asked sharply. I did not believe she could succeed, Vex admitted. I thought the patient would die regardless. But I was wrong. Dr. Han succeeded where the rest of us had failed for generations. That should be celebrated, not punished. Celebrated? Quell's feathers ruffled. She saved a life, Vex interrupted. Isn't that what we're supposed to do? Isn't that why we became doctors? Quell's eyes narrowed. Dr. Vex, you are out of order. Return to your seat. Vex didn't move. I will not sit silently while you punish someone for doing what we all should have done years ago. Dr. Han's treatment works. She has saved 47 patients with a 100% success rate. 0 deaths, 0 serious complications. Show me any treatment in consortium history with those numbers. The numbers are irrelevant if the process is flawed. Quell snapped. The numbers are all that matter. Vex countered. 47 families still have their loved ones because of Dr. Han. Can your protocols say the same? The chamber erupted again, this time with more voices joining in. Some doctors agreed with Vex, others called for order. The noise grew louder. Quell banged a gavel, calling for silence. This tribunal will not descend into chaos. Dr. Vex, you are dismissed. Dr. Han, we have reviewed your data. We acknowledge that your treatment appears effective. However, that does not excuse your violation of established procedures. Yuna took a step forward. Then maybe your procedures need to change. The chamber went silent. Every eye was on her. The consortium has been the authority on medical practice for 500 years, Yuna continued. 500 years. And in all that time, no one solved the shatter. No one even tried. You just accepted it as incurable and moved on. How many Vectar died in those 500 years? Thousands? Tens of thousands? She looked around the chamber, meeting as many eyes as she could. I'm not saying I'm smarter than any of you. I'm not saying humans are better doctors. But I am saying that sometimes an outsider can see what everyone else missed. And instead of being defensive about that, instead of trying to punish me for succeeding where you failed, maybe you should be asking yourselves why you failed in the first place. A Grell doctor, amphibious and blue-skinned, stood up. You speak boldly for someone so young and inexperienced. I speak honestly, Yuna replied. And I speak for the patients who can't speak for themselves. The ones who died because no one questioned whether the shatter was really incurable. The ones who trusted you to find answers and got nothing but sympathy in return. Quell stood, her voice sharp with anger. Enough. This tribunal finds Dr. Yuna Han guilty of unauthorized experimentation and violation of medical protocols. Your license to practice medicine in galactic space is hereby revoked. You will cease all treatment immediately and return to Earth. This decision is final. The gavel struck. Yuna felt the words hit her like a physical blow. No more patience. No more healing. Everything she had worked for, gone. But before she could respond, there was a commotion at the entrance to the chamber. The doors opened and dozens of Vectar flooded in. They moved quickly, surrounding the platform where Yuna stood. Sella was at the front with Kree beside her. Behind them were all 47 patients Yuna had treated, along with their families. What is the meaning of this? Quell demanded. This is a closed tribunal. Sella stepped forward. She spoke in her own language first, then activated her translation collar. We are the meaning of this. We are the patients Dr. Han saved. We are the ones who would be dead if she had followed your protocols. Kree moved to stand beside Yuna, taking her hand. She saved my mom. She saved all our families. And you want to punish her for that? The other Vectar clicked in agreement. A sound like rain on metal that filled the chamber. An elderly Vectar stepped forward, his shell marked with age. I am Elder Toth. I speak for the Vectar communities across 12 worlds. We know what Dr. Han has done for us. We know she broke your rules. But your rules let our people die for generations. If breaking rules saves lives, then maybe your rules are wrong. Quell looked shaken. This is highly irregular. You cannot simply— We can speak, Sella interrupted. We have that right. This tribunal affects us. You took away the only doctor who could save our people. What gives you that authority? Taman stood up in the observation section. If I may speak as well, the consortium just revoked Dr. Han's license. But I still have mine. So does Dr. Park. We've both learned her treatment protocol. We'll continue her work. Hana stood beside him, and we'll teach it to every doctor who wants to learn. You can't stop knowledge from spreading. Director Cass stood as well. Horizons Gate Station formally requests that Dr. Han remain as our chief of xenobiology research. She doesn't need a galactic license for research, only for direct patient care. Quell looked around the chamber, seeing the support for Yuna growing. Her feathers trembled with frustration. This tribunal has made its decision. It stands. Then we reject your tribunal, Elder Toth said firmly. The Vectar worlds will no longer recognize Khan. 6 months had passed since the hearing. The galaxy was different now. Yuna stood in what had once been a simple medical bay on Horizons Gate. Now it was the headquarters of the Human Medical Initiative, a new organization dedicated to bringing human medical knowledge to alien species. The walls were covered with star charts marking worlds where human doctors now worked. The desks were full of researchers analyzing alien biology through the lens of human medical history. Taman walked in carrying a stack of data tablets. Another success. The Grell respiratory plague on Minor 3. Dr. Somin found the answer in old Earth antibiotics. The plague is almost completely stopped, Yuna smiled. That's wonderful. How many lives? Estimated? About 15,000 saved so far. 15,000. Yuna could barely comprehend the number. 6 months ago, she had been focused on saving one Vectar mother. Now human doctors across a dozen worlds were saving thousands. Hana entered next, her face glowing with excitement. You're not going to believe this. I just got a message from Dr. Junho on Kelly's Prime. He solved their reproduction crisis. The plant-based species? Taman asked. I thought that was genetic. Everyone thought it was genetic, Hana said, grinning. Turns out it's hormonal. The Kellys were exposed to artificial lighting on their colony worlds. The wrong spectrum. It disrupted their hormonal cycles. Dr. Junho adjusted the lighting to match their home sun, and boom. Reproduction rates are already climbing. Yuna shook her head in wonder. A simple lighting change. Why didn't anyone else see that? Because they weren't looking for simple answers, Taman said. They assumed it had to be complicated. That's the pattern we keep seeing. These problems aren't unsolvable. They're just being approached wrong. It was true. Over the past 6 months, human doctors had tackled dozens of incurable conditions across multiple species. Most of the solutions were surprisingly simple once someone asked the right questions. A dietary supplement here, an environmental adjustment there. Basic medical principles that humans had learned through centuries of trial and error, but not everyone was happy about humanity's success. Yuna's datapad chimed. She glanced at it and frowned. Another equipment shipment lost. That's the 3rd one this month. Lost or stolen? Hana asked darkly. Does it matter? The result is the same. Dr. Minho on Thara Station says he can't treat patients without proper scanners. Taman leaned against a desk. It's sabotage, has to be. 3 lost shipments is too many to be coincidence. The consortium, Yuna said quietly. They want us to fail. After the hearing, the Galactic Medical Consortium had been forced to back down publicly. The Vectar Rebellion had inspired other species to question consortium authority. Several worlds had withdrawn their membership. Others had demanded reforms, but Quell and her supporters hadn't given up. They couldn't attack the Human Medical Initiative directly without looking petty. So they worked in the shadows. Missing supplies, delayed approvals, bureaucratic obstacles that slowed down human doctors at every turn. Yuna's datapad chimed again. This time it was a priority message. She opened it and her expression darkened. What is it? Hana asked. It's a threat. Someone saying I should go back to Earth before something bad happens. Taman moved to look at the message. Anonymous. Routed through multiple servers, professional. How many is that now? Hana asked. This week? 5. Yuna closed the datapad. They're trying to scare me off. Is it working? Yuna looked around the office. At the star chart showing worlds they'd helped. At the photos on the walls of patients who were alive because human doctors had refused to give up. At the stack of requests for help that grew larger every day. No, she said firmly. They can threaten me all they want. I'm not going anywhere. But the threats weren't the only problem. The Human Medical Initiative was growing faster than they could manage. Every week brought new requests for human doctors, new species with medical mysteries, new worlds begging for help. They didn't have enough people. Training doctors in xenobiology took time. Yuna, Taman, and Hana were stretched thin trying to supervise projects across multiple sectors. "We need more support from Earth," Taman said, echoing what they were all thinking. More funding, more personnel, more resources. "Earth is doing what it can," Yuna replied. "But we're still a new player in galactic politics. We don't have the infrastructure yet." Hana pulled up a financial report on the main screen. "We're going to run out of money in 3 months at this rate. After that, we'll have to start shutting down projects. Pulling doctors back." The thought made Yuna's stomach twist. Shutting down projects meant abandoning patients, letting people die because they didn't have enough money. It went against everything she believed in. "There has to be a way," she said. "We've saved thousands of lives across dozens of worlds. Surely that has value." "It does," a new voice said from the doorway. They all turned. Director Cass stood there with an alien Yuna didn't recognize. The stranger was tall and crystalline, his body made of something that looked like living glass. He sparkled in the light. "This is Ambassador Lith," Cass said. "He represents the Crystalline Accord, a coalition of 13 species." Ambassador Lith stepped forward. His voice came from somewhere inside his crystal body, resonating like music. "Dr. Han, I have come with a proposal. The Accord has been watching your work. We are impressed by what humanity has accomplished." "Thank you," Yuna said carefully. "But I sense there's more to this visit than compliments." Lith's surface flickered with colors. "Amusement, perhaps." "Indeed. The Accord wishes to fund your initiative. We will provide equipment, facilities, and financial support for your medical programs." Yuna, Taman, and Hana exchanged glances. It sounded too good to be true. "What's the catch?" Hana asked bluntly. "No catch," Lith said. "Only a request. We would like human doctors to establish permanent medical centers on Accord worlds. We would like to learn from your methods. And in exchange, we will support your work across the galaxy." Taman stepped forward. Why are you doing this?" Lith's colors shifted again. "Sadness, maybe. Because the consortium failed us too. My species has a degenerative condition that affects our crystal structure. The consortium declared it genetic and irreversible. But after seeing what you did for the Vector, we wonder if they were wrong. We wonder if human doctors might see what others missed." Yuna felt hope kindle in her chest. "You want us to study your condition?" "We want you to try. That is all we ask. To try when others gave up." It was a leap of faith, accepting funding from an alien coalition they barely knew. But Yuna thought about the patients they could help with proper resources, the lives they could save. "We accept," she said. "On one condition. We maintain full independence. No one tells us how to practice medicine or which patients to treat." "Agreed," Lith said immediately. "We want your methods, not your obedience." Over the next weeks, everything changed. The Crystalline Accord was true to their word. New equipment arrived. Funding poured in. Human doctors were able to expand their operations across multiple sectors. Yuna established medical centers on 5 Accord worlds. She brought in more doctors from Earth, trained them personally. The initiative grew from a small operation to a major medical force, and they did tackle the crystalline condition. Hana led the research, and after 2 months of intense study, she found the answer. The crystals were breaking down because of trace radiation exposure, something in the crystalline home system that had changed over millennia. A simple radiation shield around their cities stopped the progression. Existing damage could even be partially reversed. Another incurable condition cured by asking the right questions. But success brought new problems. The bigger they grew, the bigger a target they became. The threats escalated. Someone sabotaged a medical center on Accord World 7. No one was killed, but valuable research was destroyed. Then one night, Yuna's apartment was broken into. Nothing was stolen, but a message was left on her terminal. Just 3 words, "Stop or die." Director Cass assigned her security. 2 guards followed her everywhere. It felt like living in a cage. "They're getting desperate," Taman said during a late-night meeting. "The consortium is losing power, and they know it. We're exposing decades of failures. They can't let that continue. So what do we do?" Hana asked. "Give up? Let them win?" "Never," Yuna said firmly. But she was tired, so tired. The weight of responsibility pressed down on her shoulders. Every decision she made affected thousands of lives. Every mistake could be fatal. She thought about Sela and Kree. about the simple act of refusing to give up on one patient. That had started all of this. One choice. One moment of compassion. Was it worth it? The threats, the sabotage, the constant pressure? Her datapad chimed. A message from Cree. The young Vectar was enrolled in medical school now, inspired by Una to become a doctor. The message was a picture of Cree in a white coat with a caption, "First day of clinical training. Thank you for showing me the way." Una smiled. Yes, it was worth it. Every moment. Every struggle. She looked at Taman and Hana. We keep going. We save everyone we can, and we don't let fear stop us. They nodded in agreement. Outside, in the darkness of space, ships moved with purpose. Some carried human doctors to new worlds. Some carried supplies to medical centers. Some carried patients desperate for hope, and the summons came on a cold morning. Not for Una alone, but for all the leaders of the Human Medical Initiative. The Galactic Council itself was calling a special session. The topic? The future of medical practice in known space. Una, Taman, and Hana arrived at the council chambers on the neutral world of Dalthara. The building was ancient, carved from a single massive crystal that glowed with inner light. Representatives from hundreds of species filled the seats, watching as the humans entered. High Physician Quell was already there, standing at the speaker's platform. She looked older than Una remembered, more tired, but her eyes still held that cold determination. The council recognizes High Physician Quell of the Galactic Medical Consortium, the council speaker announced. He was a being of pure energy contained in a crystalline shell, his voice resonating through the chamber. Quell stepped forward. Honored Council, I stand before you today to address a crisis. For the past year, the established order of medical practice has been undermined by reckless experimentation. The humans claim to have cured dozens of conditions that we deemed incurable. They claim to have saved thousands of lives. She paused, her gaze sweeping the chamber. And perhaps they have. But at what cost? They ignore safety protocols. They experiment without proper oversight. They distribute treatments without long-term testing. Today they succeed. But what about tomorrow? What happens when their luck runs out? What happens when their experimental treatments cause harm? Murmurs ran through the council. Some species nodded in agreement. The consortium has maintained medical standards for 500 years, Quell continued. We have done so to protect patients from harm. Yes, we move slowly. Yes, we are cautious. But that caution has prevented countless disasters. The humans ask us to abandon our principles in favor of quick results. I say that is a recipe for catastrophe. She turned to look directly at Una. I propose that the council revoke all human medical licenses and shut down the Human Medical Initiative. Let their treatments be properly tested by consortium researchers. Let them be approved through proper channels. Until then, humans should not be allowed to practice medicine in galactic space. The chamber erupted in voices. Some supported Quell. Others shouted in protest. The council speaker called for order. The council recognizes Dr. Una Han. Una stood and walked to the platform. She felt every eye in the chamber on her. The weight of it was crushing. But she thought about Sella, about Cree, about all the patients who were alive because someone had refused to accept impossible. High Physician Quell is right about one thing, Una began. Medical practice should be safe. Patients should be protected. Those principles are important. She saw surprise flicker across Quell's face. But she's wrong about everything else, Una continued, her voice growing stronger. The consortium didn't protect patients. You abandoned them. You called their conditions incurable and walked away. You left families to grieve without hope. That's not medicine. That's surrender. She pulled out her datapad and displayed data on the chamber's main screen. In the past year, human doctors have treated patients from 43 different species. We've addressed 67 conditions that were considered incurable. Our success rate is 94%. We've saved over 20,000 lives. The numbers hung in the air, undeniable. Did we take risks? Yes. Did we experiment? Yes, but we didn't do it recklessly. We studied. We researched. We built on centuries of human medical knowledge. And most importantly, we never gave up on patients who everyone else had abandoned. A Thurian council member spoke up. But Dr. Han, what about safety? What about the 6% failure rate you mentioned? Una nodded, expecting the question. Of the 67 conditions we've treated, 4 are still under research. We haven't found solutions yet. But here's what matters. None of those patients were harmed by our attempts. They're no worse than they were before. We just haven't succeeded yet. Yet, Quell said sharply. You assume you will succeed? That's arrogant. No, Una replied. It's hope. It's refusing to accept that some people just have to die because their condition is difficult. That's what the consortium does. You accept defeat. Humans don't, a Grell Council member stood.
High Physician Quell, you speak of disasters that might happen.
But can you point to actual harm caused by human medical practice? Quell hesitated. Not yet. But not yet means never, the Grell interrupted. In contrast, we can point to actual lives saved. Actual families reunited. I represent the Grell people, and I can tell you that human doctors cured our respiratory plague. 15,000 of my people are alive today because of them. Should they have moved more slowly? Perhaps. But if they had, my people would be dead. Another council member spoke. Then another. Species after species stood to testify about human medical successes. The Vectar, the Kellys, the Crystalline Accord, the Grell. Others that Una barely knew about. Quell's expression grew darker with each testimony. Finally, the council speaker called for silence. It is clear that the Human Medical Initiative has achieved remarkable results. However, High Physician Quell's concerns about safety are not without merit. This council must find a balance between innovation and protection. He paused, his energy form pulsing with thought. Therefore, I propose a compromise. The Human Medical Initiative will be allowed to continue, but under new oversight. A joint committee will be formed with members from both the consortium and the initiative. This committee will review treatments before they are widely distributed. But it will operate under new principles: speed, transparency, and a presumption that new treatments should be tried unless proven dangerous, rather than blocked unless proven safe. Quell's feathers stood on end. That's unacceptable. You're asking us to lower our standards. No, the council speaker said firmly. We're asking you to update them. Medicine has stagnated under consortium control. The humans have proven that. It's time for change, the vote was called. It wasn't even close. The council overwhelmingly approved the compromise. The consortium would be reformed. Human medical practices would be integrated into galactic medicine. A new era was beginning. Quell stood frozen at her platform, staring at the vote results in disbelief. 500 years of consortium authority, fundamentally changed in a single day. After the session, Una found herself surrounded by representatives from dozens of species. They all wanted to work with the initiative. They all had medical mysteries they wanted solved. Taman and Hana pushed through the crowd to reach her. We did it, Hana said, grinning. We actually did it. It's not over, Una said, watching Quell leave the chamber. She'll fight this. The old guard will resist. Let them, Taman said. We've proven ourselves. The galaxy sees what we can do now. But as they left the council chambers, Una noticed something. A small group of aliens watching them from the shadows. They wore no identifying marks, but their posture was hostile, threatening. One of them caught Una's eye and made a gesture. She didn't need a translator to understand the meaning. This wasn't over. That night, Una couldn't sleep. She stood on the balcony of her quarters, looking out at the alien sky of Dalthara. 3 moons hung in the darkness, casting strange shadows. She thought about how far she'd come. From one desperate attempt to save a dying Vectar to reforming galactic medical practice. It felt unreal. Her datapad chimed. A message from Kree. I heard about the council vote. You're changing everything, Dr. Han. Mom and I are so proud. Una smiled. But the smile faded as another message arrived. Anonymous again. Just like the threats before. You've won this battle. But the war isn't over. Some things are bigger than you. Bigger than your ideals. Walk away now or face the consequences. She deleted the message. She'd faced threats before. She would face them again. But deep down she felt a chill. The message was different this time. More confident. Like whoever sent it knew something she didn't. She pushed the feeling aside and went back inside. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. New patients. New mysteries to solve. That's what mattered. The work. The lives they could save. She didn't know that the sender of that message was already putting their plan into motion. A plan that would test everything Una believed in. A plan that would force her to make an impossible choice. Across the city, in a secured facility, High Physician Quell met with a shadowy group. They were the ones who had been sabotaging the initiative. The ones who sent the threats. The Council has betrayed us, Quell said bitterly. They've chosen chaos over order, human recklessness over consortium wisdom. Then we must show them the cost of that choice, one of the shadowy figures said. His species was hidden by a hood. We must show them that human methods are dangerous, that their successes are built on luck, not skill. How? Quell asked. We've identified a target, a human medical center on Wrent Station. It serves a Kellis colony. If something were to happen there, if patients were to die from human treatment, that would be murder, Quell said quietly. That would be a lesson, the figure corrected. A lesson the galaxy needs to learn before it's too late. Quell was silent for a long moment. She had devoted her life to medicine, to helping people. But she had also devoted herself to the consortium, to maintaining order, to protecting the system. She thought about her legacy. The alert came at 3 in the morning. Una was jolted awake by the emergency signal on her data pad. The message was brief and horrifying. Disaster at Wrent Station Medical Center. Multiple casualties. Human treatment failure suspected. Come immediately. Una was dressed and moving within minutes. She contacted Taman and Hana on her way to the transport bay. They were already preparing to leave. The flight to Wrent Station took 4 hours. 4 hours of fear and uncertainty. Una tried to review the medical center's recent cases, looking for any sign of what might have gone wrong. But everything looked normal. Routine treatments, standard procedures, what had happened. They arrived to find Wrent Station in chaos. Security forces swarmed the medical center. News crews from a dozen species crowded the corridors. And in the center of it all, High Physician Quell stood before the cameras, her expression grave. This tragedy demonstrates what I've been warning about, Quell was saying. Human medical practices are untested and dangerous. 7 Kelly's patients died last night from a treatment that was supposed to help them. 7 lives lost because humans were allowed to experiment without proper oversight. Una pushed through the crowd. What happened? What treatment? Quell turned to her and Una saw something flicker in her eyes. Satisfaction, guilt? It was gone too quickly to identify. Your Dr. Minjay was treating Kelly's patients for a hormonal condition, Quell said coldly. He administered a new compound he developed. Within hours, all 7 patients went into shock. They died before anything could be done. That's impossible, Hana said, arriving beside Una. I reviewed Dr. Minjay's hormone treatment personally. It was sound. We tested it extensively. Clearly not extensively enough, Quell replied. The evidence is clear. Human recklessness has finally resulted in tragedy. Una moved past Quell into the medical center. Dr. Minjay sat in his office, his head in his hands. He looked devastated. Dr. Han, he said when he saw her. I don't understand. I followed the protocol exactly. I checked everything 3 times. The treatment should have worked. It did work in the test cases. Show me everything, Una said. Every scan, every record, every detail. For the next 6 hours, Una, Taman, and Hana went through every piece of data. They reviewed the treatment protocol. They examined the compound Dr. Minjay had used. They checked the equipment. And slowly, impossibly, they found the truth. The compound was contaminated, Hana said quietly, staring at her scanner. Look at these readings. There's a foreign substance mixed in. Something that would react badly with Kelly's biology. But how? Dr. Minjay asked. I synthesized it myself using the medical bay's equipment. The same equipment I always use. Taman was already checking the synthesis machine. His expression darkened. Someone tampered with it recently. There's code here that shouldn't be. It added the contaminant during synthesis. Dr. Minjay, you never had a chance. This wasn't your fault. It was sabotage, Una said, her voice hard as steel. Someone murdered those patients to make us look bad. She thought about the threats, the messages, the shadowy figures watching them leave the council chambers. This had been planned, carefully, deliberately, but proving it would be almost impossible. The saboteur had been clever. Without Hana's detailed analysis, no one would have found the contamination. It would have looked like human error. We need to go public with this, Taman said. We need to show people what really happened. They won't believe us, Hana said grimly. They'll think we're making excuses, trying to cover up our mistakes. Una was silent, thinking. Then she pulled out her datapad and sent a message. I'm calling in a favor. 20 minutes later, Ambassador Lith arrived with a team of Crystalline Accord investigators. They were neutral parties trusted by multiple species. If anyone could verify the sabotage, it would be them. The investigation took 2 days. 2 days of intense scrutiny. Every piece of equipment examined. Every line of code reviewed. Every molecule of the contaminated compound analyzed. Finally, Ambassador Lith stood before the gathered media and presented his findings. The Crystalline Accord has completed our investigation. We can conclusively state that the deaths at Vren Station were not caused by human error or faulty treatment. They were caused by deliberate sabotage. Someone tampered with the medical equipment to introduce a deadly contaminant. The chamber erupted in shocked voices. Cameras turned to capture Quell's reaction. She stood frozen, her feathers pale. Furthermore, Lith continued, we have traced the tampering to a specific access code, an access code that belongs to someone with consortium authorization. Quell's eyes widened. That's impossible. The consortium would never. We are not accusing the consortium as a whole, Lith said carefully. But someone with consortium access committed this act. We have shared our evidence with station security. They will pursue charges. Over the next week, the investigation expanded. Security forces tracked the saboteurs' movements, their communications, their connections. The trail led to a small group of extremists who wanted to preserve the old order at any cost. But the most damning evidence came from an unexpected source. Dr. Vex, the Thurian doctor who had witnessed Yuna's first treatment of Sela, came forward with recordings. Recordings of meetings where the sabotage was planned. Meetings where Quell had given her approval. I was asked to join them, Vex testified before the Galactic Council. They wanted me to help sabotage human medical centers. I pretended to agree so I could gather evidence. I hoped I was wrong. I hoped High Physician Quell wouldn't actually approve murder, but she did. Quell was arrested. The extremist group was dismantled, and the galaxy watched as the truth came out. The consortium leadership had been so desperate to maintain power that they had killed innocent patients. The backlash was immediate and fierce. The consortium's reputation was destroyed. More species withdrew their membership. Calls for complete reformation echoed across the galaxy. But for Yuna, the victory felt hollow. 7 Kelly's patients had died. 7 families were grieving. No amount of justice would bring them back. She attended their memorial service on Vren Station. She stood with the families and said nothing. What could she say? That their loved ones had died because humans had threatened the status quo? That they were casualties in a power struggle they never asked to be part of? An elderly Kellis approached her after the service. His plant-like body was withered with age, his leaves brown at the edges. Dr. Han, he said through his translator, I am Elder Wove. My daughter was one of those who died. I'm so sorry, Yuna said, her voice breaking. I'm so sorry we couldn't protect her. You didn't kill her, Elder Wove said gently. Fear killed her. Fear of change. Fear of progress. Those who cling to the old ways out of fear will always lash out at those who offer something better. He reached out and touched Yuna's hand with a branch-like limb. My daughter believed in what you're doing. She volunteered for the treatment because she wanted to help prove that humans could be trusted. She knew there were risks. She accepted them. Do not let her death stop you from helping others. Yuna nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. 3 months later, the Galactic Medical Alliance was officially formed. It replaced the old consortium with a new organization dedicated to innovation, collaboration, and putting patients first. Representatives from hundreds of species served on its board, including humans. Yuna was offered a position as one of the founding directors. She accepted, but only on the condition that she could still practice medicine directly. She would never be content just pushing papers and attending meetings. The first meeting of the Alliance was held on Horizon's Gate Station, where everything had started. The chambers were filled with doctors from across the galaxy. Species that had never worked together before now collaborated on research, shared knowledge, learned from each other. Yuna stood at the podium to give the opening address. She looked out at the diverse gathering and felt hope kindle in her chest. 1 year ago, she began, a child asked me to save their mother. I didn't know if I could. I didn't know enough about vector biology. I had no authorization, no approval, no guarantee of success. All I had was a refusal to give up. She paused, letting her words sink in. That's what brought us all here. Not superior knowledge or advanced technology, just a simple refusal to accept that some problems are unsolvable. Some patients are beyond help. Some conditions are incurable. The old consortium failed because it stopped asking questions. It accepted limits that shouldn't exist. It chose safety over hope. We're here to change that. To build something better. Something that puts patients first, always. She saw Cree in the audience now wearing a medical student's white coat. Beside Cree sat Sella, healthy and proud. In another section, she saw the families of the 7 Kelly's patients who had died. They had chosen to attend despite their grief, to ensure their loved one's sacrifice meant something. We won't get everything right, Una continued. We'll make mistakes. We'll face setbacks, but we'll never stop trying. We'll never stop learning.
And we'll never ever give up on a patient who asks for our help. The chamber erupted in approval.
Not just from humans, but from species across the galaxy. The applause went on for minutes. After the meeting, Una found herself on a balcony overlooking the station.